You're listening to the Wordslinger Podcast, episode 98. What would Michael Bunker do? This episode of the Wordslinger Podcast is brought to you by the audiobook edition of Quelo Medallion. You can find Quelo Medallion on Audible and use your Audible credit, or get Quelo Medallion for free when you go to audibletrial.com/wordslinger.
It's the Wordslinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger, and today is a red letter day for the Tomlinsons. Because today, November 11th, that's when you're listening to this. It is, in fact, not November 11th where I am at the moment, but that is a mere, I think, 2 days away. What is today? Today, I'm recording this on Wednesday the 9th, but on November 11th, a couple of things happened. One, and I do think this is big news, but the sequel to the Quelo Medallion, which you heard about at the head of the show and the ad in the head of the show, which is available on Audible, right? But the sequel is available in ebook starting today, November 11th, and that is the Atlantis Riddle. I did not stumble on the name of that, but I was going to go in a different direction. But that is the Atlantis Riddle. That is the second Dan Kotler thriller. So if you are a fan of thrillers, or just, need something really interesting to read, and you like you like a bit of history with your intrigue, I recommend checking this book out. Many thanks, by the way, to all the people, especially the people on my street team, who helped me with the editing and polishing of this book. I feel certain there are probably still some typos and errors in the book. That's just the way it seems to go. But I feel very good about this release. I feel very good about the way things are shaping up as far as my workflow. A little on that, I mean, if you're an author, that you may find this interesting. If you're a reader, you may find it interesting. If you're neither of those things, you may be bored to tears. But the process I have now, so I started using Ulysses as my writing app of choice. I take some flack from the diehard Scrivener fans out there. I still believe in Scrivener, especially now that they have a mobile app. I still believe in them. I think I don't think I could have gotten my career going in the direction it's in if not for Scrivener. So I'm very grateful to Scrivener. I just like Ulysses better. I've come to love the nuances of it. Now that I love the style of it, and I think it's the perfect writing app for me. So maybe that'll change. But what's great about Ulysses is I can instantly export an ebook if I choose. However, what I tend to do is export a Word document, a docx file, and import that into Vellum, where I do my ebooks, and I make them look really pretty. And I know that adds some junk code. It's not the cleanest way to create an ebook, but it sure looks nice. So that's my sort of workflow now. And then I get the book into the hands as an ebook now. As an ebook, I get the book into the hands of my street team. These are my beta readers. These are the folks who help me, find typos, find any goofs, so I can avoid some grievous errors in story and plot. And then that's it. I mean, once I get that back, I do my rewrites, I polish it up, I slap the cover on it, which I generally design myself, and I release it into the wild. Now I do a pre-release now, so that on launch day, I get a big explosion of purchases. So November 11th is the day. So you are welcome to go out and pick up the book yourself. And if you want, it's available on practically every platform. But you can go to Books to Read. That's books2read.com/Atlantis-Riddle. And if you do that, you will find links to your favorite store so that you can pick that book up. And I would appreciate it. That would help me a lot. And be sure to review it when you're done. So, all right. There's my big plug for that release. But one more thing before we get into what is frankly an amazing interview with my now friend, Michael Bunker. And I hope he and I continue to grow in our friendship because I really dig this guy. But I one more thing, and it's related. It comes up in this interview, but today is the day. It is the day for me and Kara to move into the RV full time. So we are actually, this is one of the reasons why I'm pre-recording, because normally I'm kind of lazy and I record on the day of, which is bad form. That's not professional at all. So this is forcing me to do something a little more professional. But as of November 11th, Kara and I will be living in the RV full time. We're taking our first trip today to Livingston, Texas, where we're going to do this RV boot camp. We thought that was a nice way to sort of begin our journey. And then we have a week or so in there where we'll be sort of, I don't know, we're going to move around a little. We may try to find an RV park where we can stay for a week, somewhere kind of in the Sugar Land area. But then we're going to take off. We're going to be but we're going to be driving to Naples, Florida after that for the Thanksgiving holiday. We're going to spend a week or so up there. And now we're still trying to get Kara on the road full time. That's our next challenge. But we're much more, we'll say, ambulatory. I mean, we're able to move around a lot more now that we're in the RV full time. And I think you're gonna see some net benefit from that. We're very intrigued by the whole thing. I'm excited about it. So I've been announcing this for like 2 years, so I feel like I should insert some like applause or something. But that's where we are. So for all those who have asked and wondered and pleaded for more information, here we are, folks. November 11th, 2016. A few scant days. I'm actually recording this the day after the election. So we have President Donald Trump. What do you know? What do you know? And whatever. I'm gonna withhold political commentary on this show, I think. But everything's gonna be all right, folks. The sun will rise. We're gonna be all right. But I'm just saying, it's only a coincidence. My wife and I are moving into an RV. So anyway, so there's that. And we're really excited about that. I'm really excited about the release of Atlantis Riddle. November 11th, 2016 turned out to be a very, just a memorable day, we'll say. And I'm very pleased by it. So, and plus, on this day in history, you get to hear my interview with Michael Bunker now. How much better can it possibly get? I ask you. So, all right, without further ado, quick note. No, I'll get to other stuff, supporting the show and that stuff. I'm just going to wait on that. We'll talk about that after the podcast or after the interview. So for now and right now, let's get into this fantastic interview with my new friend, Michael Bunker. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in for another Word Slinger episode. And this time, this is a cat I've been following for a while, mostly on Facebook. And I recently started reading one of his new books, at least, Hell and Sea, his serialized book that you can get if you go to his website and hop on a Patreon campaign. We're going to talk about that a little, because that's a pretty interesting strategy. So we're going to talk about that a little. But I'm talking to Michael Bunker. He is, of course, the author of Hell and the Sea, which is turning out to be a pretty fascinating read, Michael. I wish I could have gotten to it. I managed to get to it on the flight back from NINC. And I've been reading it ever since. So, and I'm nearly done, but I'm not quite done. But I'm really enjoying it.
All right, cool, man.
So, and I know that is inspired by at least some sort of real world events. I don't know how deep you want to go into detail on that, but you want to talk about it just a little.
Yeah, I kind of had an idea about doing a more literary type of novel, yeah. Or at least not genre fiction,
right?
And for some time, and then. Having been there kind of early on during the indie revolution and seeing a lot of things from the inside, I thought I had a pretty good story, but I didn't know how it would come across. I didn't want to be seen as somebody that was, causing trouble or something like that. And then this past April, an indie author who I had talked to a few times, we weren't really good friends, but I had talked to him a few times, committed suicide. And that really kind of just sparked in me the idea that this could be more of a story than I originally thought. And at the time, I was rereading for bunch. I don't know, fifth or sixth time I was reading Hemingway's "Sun Also Rises."
Yeah.
And that his book was a roman à clef. It was loosely based on the truth of people that he knew and things that had really happened, and he put that into a fictional universe. And wrote about things that he knew and things that were actually probably more true because he was able to portray them in a shorter time span, so people could see the essence of what was really happening.
Yeah.
And so that's when I finally had the idea that combined with releasing it serially, which is the way that many of those Hemingway and other jazz age books were released in magazines, I just thought that this was the perfect way to do it.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of like an F. Scott Fitzgerald, if he'd been a little more of a man, we'll say. What it really reminds me of? It reminds me of a book called The Comedy Writer.
Right.
From like the late 90s. I don't know if you read that. Peter Farley, I think, was the author of that. Kind of reminds me of that.
I think I'm familiar with it. I don't remember. I don't think I read it, but I think I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, and he's of course covering his experience writing comedy in L.A. and that sort of thing, and it's fictionalized. So it's a similar vibe though. But I think what I dig, I don't think, as far as I know, or at least to my knowledge, we'll say, I don't think I've encountered another book about the indie publishing industry, another fiction book about the indie publishing industry like ever. So I don't think I have either. Yeah, you may have opened up a door there.
To me, that's remarkable because it's publishing is one of the biggest or most important cultural forces in the world,
right?
And it has been going back to Gutenberg, and we have just gone through probably the biggest revolution of that industry, since Gutenberg, and so. That there has to be stories.
I know it's huge. No, okay, I just want to check myself because now I realize I may have done this. I did not refer to it as the old man sea, did I? Because I keep doing that.
No,
mentally.
You did.
Okay,
no, you were correct. You said hell on the sea.
I'm going to do that at least once in this conversation because I kept trying to tell. So I was at NINC last week and I kept telling people about this book because I had sort of started it and I hadn't really gotten into it much before I had to get on a plane and I had other things to work on, but. I was already very excited about it. I've known quite a bit about it because John Monk has just talked you up left and right. So I've practically heard everything is in the book. I'm very excited about it because I think there's a lot of drama in this world that, in this indie publishing world, people just don't even know, So this kind of opens that door.
And on both extremes, there's more, people working together, people helping one another, and than probably any time in the history of publishing. And at the same time, there's billions of dollars at stake, and there are businesses that are being made or broken every day. And you have those huge stories, and then you have the stories of individual people who are quitting their jobs or taking their family, moving them to follow this dream. And so the fact that there's human drama and that there's stories is not arguable. And so at that point, I just thought, I have a story and I want to tell it. And this is a good route. It's a very traditional route to sell the story. So it's been fun.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I wonder at like what percentage of the book is taken sort of directly from your experience.
I tell people, a lot of people who contacted me that are reading the story, and I tell them that essentially the story is true. That things that have changed are that the time window in which events happen is much compacted as it has to be.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes you'll have in the social media age, we'll have a single conversation with somebody that might last weeks. Yeah. And you can't do that in a novel. And likewise, there are things that you experience when you go through something that you don't recognize until later.
Right.
And so as an author, when you're fictionalizing something that really happened, you'll use things like foreshadowing and other things that now are more important than you might have recognized at the time.
Right.
And the other big thing that is changed, I've changed some of the locations, and I have changed some of the characters are composite characters.
Yeah.
And so whereas, there might have been 10 or 12 of us in a Facebook group, where a lot of the different things happened that were very, very important and that were actually seminal in the early indie publishing movement. Maybe I encapsulate what actually happened in a conversation that happens at a bar. Yeah. One thing you can't do with a book like this is almost everything today happens online.
Right.
And
right.
So to me, I had to put those in a situation where people could relate to it and they weren't just reading emails. Otherwise, it's just, it's like the National Enquirer.
Yeah, we had a whole discussion about metafiction over the past week. And,
right.
Which is, for those listening, if they're not aware, I mean, that's basically where you write fiction based entirely in like email or social media posts or that sort of thing. And I have yet to find one that I think really works. Maybe The Martian technically falls in that category since it's like a journal. But
and even then, I think just like in the film, we pictured it. When I read The Martian the first time, which was before a lot of the changes, I read it, in the first iteration. It was still a very visual, communicative art form, to me. And I think that has to happen, or else you just. And there are, especially in Act 2, which I haven't put out yet. There are more emails and things like that happen, but what I try to do as much as possible is encapsulate the gist of the truth of it into a relatable incident.
Right. And is the book completed? I mean, is it you're just leaking it a bit at a time, or is it?
It's not completed, but I'm still quite a bit in front of what's being released, but it's not completed yet.
Okay. So I want to talk about this strategy that you're using, getting the funding via Patreon and releasing it that way. I mean, how's that working? What was your goal actually first?
Well, the first goal was to make writing something like this financially viable.
Okay.
And that's just a reality we live in the world. And so that, every day I sit down, there are things that I can write. And the genre fiction, the things that to me kind of pay the bills, those things are kind of one area of a decision I can make when I sit down to write. Mm-hmm. And then, there's the different portals. In other words, I have an agent, and that agent that submits things to Mainstream Publishing and TradPub, and then I do my indie publishing thing. And I could sit down and write short stories that are going to go into anthologies for X amount of words per word. And so we all make those decisions. This was something I really, really wanted to write, but I did not see that immediately it could be at all financially viable, and I would be taking away from time that I would be writing something else.
Right.
And so the reason I Patreon is that, and for years I completely avoided it. I mean, not just Patreon, but any type of crowdfunding idea. And people were constantly emailing me or messaging me saying, why don't you try this? And I didn't think it was palatable to me. Yeah. To me, you ought to be able to sell the books, and the books should be able to do it. Well, then I was reading as I was kind of doing the research for this story, and very, very often in history, people like Thomas Hardy and even Hemingway and some of the authors there on the West Bank of the Thames during the Jazz Age had put together a patronage for particular authors. And to me, so it had kind of a historical sense to it based on the kind of story I wanted to write. And so the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what, if people want this type of thing, then, maybe they're willing to pay a minimal amount. And so, with my Patreon, they can pay as little as $1 a month. And they get every chapter as it comes out, at least a chapter a month. And then I also include free short stories, anything else that I'm putting out, I just give it to my Patreon subscribers for free.
Oh, that's cool.
So
like
in reality,
content.
Right. In reality, they're going to get a chapter that's as long or longer than a short story every month for 99 cents or $1. And then they get bonus material. So I just yesterday finished a new time travel short story that I'm going to be sending to all my Patreon subscribers for free. And so my goal was that this would be a separate portal, something that I could do with extra time. I could set aside just for this, and then continue it going. So as soon as Hell in the Sea is finished, I'll package that up and it'll go out as a novel. and then I'll start something new for Patreon subscribers.
Very cool.
And it really just, it focuses for the people who want that type of continuous input and they want to support the author. Then it's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I like the idea. I mean, it's kind of it's along the same lines as like, releasing a book on your blog,
right,
a chapter at a time or whatever. But you're able to monetize it. That's very cool. And it's going to appeal to those. I mean, I imagine you got a built-in reader base who don't really care what genre you're writing or whether it's even in a genre, and are just looking to support you, right?
That's an important thing, and I have a lot of authors that ask me about this all the time, and I did have a built-in reader base of people that have followed me through different genres,
right?
And they're willing to try new things, and then it also gives an outlet to people who may not be willing to do that, but they want to try it. So I've had probably 20 people who generally they like science fiction. They like the Amish science fiction stuff that I write. They don't like literary fiction, and they normally would not buy it. But they said, you know what? I threw $1 out there in Patreon just to get us. When you do that, you get the whole book up to that point. So maybe they got 4 chapters, and they said, you know what? This is not my thing, but I really like it.
Right.
And so it's able to extend and educate those readers into something they might want to try, and if they don't like it, they can cancel. So it's there's no loss.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. Are you doing like tiers at all, or is it just anybody can donate whatever they want and they get the same thing?
There are tiers now. Even the minimum, they get pretty much everything that I write,
right.
And so everything that I write specifically that month. But in higher tiers, they get things like special videos. Communication emails, things like that. And so there are higher tiers for people that want to do those things. But
what do I got to give you to get one of the Michael Bunker t-shirts?
Oh man, I would probably. I think there may be a tier on there, but then you'd have to get one every month. So
yeah, well,
actually, all you'd have to do is just tell me. I know the guy that made that. He's a follower on Facebook, and I thought it was kind of cool. And he said
cool.
as long as I wore it ironically, it wasn't too arrogant for me to wear it. So everything I do is ironic.
Same here, man. Everything I do is ironic. I would probably, man. You got me thinking. I might like to have my face on a shirt now. So look for that.
Why not?
That's coming.
So
yeah.
You got to advertise something. It might well be something you care about.
Everybody out there listening, some of you have artistic skills. I want to see my face on a t-shirt.
There you go. And someone will do it.
Someone will do it.
People are creative, man.
So like me, you're a Texas boy. Have you always lived in Texas?
I haven't always lived in Texas. I was born in Texas. My dad was in the military, so when I was born, he was stationed out at Reese Air Force Base in Lubbock. And then we moved around a little. I lived in Ohio. We were stationed at Andrews Air Force Base in Washington, D.C. for a while, lived in Maryland. And then when he retired after 21 years, which was when I was 14, we moved to Odessa, graduated high school in Odessa, and then have lived here ever since.
My wife lived in Odessa. Actually, I think I'm mixing it up. I don't know if my brother-in-law or her, but one of them was born in Odessa before they started traveling. So,
yeah, I only lived there for 5 years, but it is a unique place. It is definitely.
Yeah. I will give it that title exactly. Yeah. So you did. Okay. Here's something I discovered on your website, which I think is pretty awesome, and I'm really shocked that I've never heard of this before. Okay, because I mean I'm a country boy. I've spent a lot of time around mesquite trees. Never heard anybody make coffee with mesquite before.
Yeah, it's the strangest thing. When we first moved out here to Central Texas, where the mesquite trees are kind of ubiquitous, I had bought a old Texas almanac.
Yeah.
And I was reading the Texas Almanac, and it said during the Civil War that Texans roasted and made coffee from the mesquite beans. And I thought, I've had every type of coffee substitute that there is out there, and they're all pretty awful. And so we went out and harvested some mesquite beans. We dried them. We snapped them into like 1-inch pieces, and we roasted them, and then we ground them up in a grinder, and then we made coffee. And when I drank it, I did not know that I wasn't drinking coffee.
Wow.
If my wife hadn't said this is the mesquite coffee, I would have said, okay, but when are we going to try the mesquite coffee?
Yeah.
And so it tasted so much like real coffee, maybe just a tad, just a touch sweeter. And so, we started kind of major harvesting and making it. And so many people saw me doing it that now we don't get a huge crop every year. So we run out within about a month, but we actually make and sell mesquite coffee now.
That's just that's incredible to me. And now I have to find a way to try it because does it have caffeine or is it caffeine free?
In the almanac, it said that it had caffeine. Okay. And so, I drank it for a year or two and to me, it had a caffeine-like effect, but I didn't get the upset stomach and some of the other things that I get with regular coffee.
Right.
But a friend of mine who lives a little farther east of here in Texas actually has had it tested, or he has a friend that had it tested, and they said there's not actually caffeine in it, although because of the sugar content, and it's actually a good sugar even for diabetics. It's supposed to be a type of sugar that really levels out highs and lows. Because of that, there is a caffeine-like effect, and so I don't get a headache. I don't get the caffeine headache if I stop drinking. If I drink mesquite coffee instead of regular coffee, it seems to have most of the effects that I want out of it. But I just don't get the upset stomach sometimes that I do if I drink too much coffee.
Okay, I have to try it now. I'm gonna find some. I'm going to find some because that's just very cool. Like it's one of those things like right under my nose. And what I like about that story, Michael, is that you discovered that by digging through an old book you found somewhere, and so it's kind of like this hidden secret from those who came before.
A whole lot of the stuff we do is like that, though. A whole lot of the stuff we do. I just when we first started living off grid, we had the internet was really not. I mean, it existed, but there was nothing on there.
Right.
And so we had this book called the Encyclopedia of Country Living.
Yeah.
And that book was everything. I mean, and it was all based on this kind of antiquated knowledge of people that had to do things. And we learned so much from it. So, I mean, that's really just kind of a truth of what we are.
Well, since you've opened that door, we'll just go through it because you are living entirely off grid, which is very interesting and it's becoming a big thing now, but you've been doing it. You were doing it before it was cool, basically.
Yeah. We, a lot of people get confused when they're off grid. They go like, "Well, how is he talking to you right now? Or how does he publish books?"
Well, that's just how good the Word Slinger podcast is, everyone. No, go ahead.
By off grid, we at our house where our cottage is and our land, we have absolutely no power at all. We don't use any grid electricity or anything like that. We don't have solar power.
Right.
At my office, which is about maybe 2 football fields walk in the woods, I have solar panels and I have batteries, and I use that to charge a laptop and cell phone, and we have a wireless connection to the nearest town. So, that's the way that works. But we've been doing this for quite a while, and like I said before it became cool. But it's also, it's been a wonderful experience for all of us and for the family, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not going quite as extreme as you are, but I mean, my wife and I are moving into an RV full time for a while.
Right, and, I knew that. That's cool.
Yeah, and it's going to be cool, and there's going to be some off grid situations, certainly, but I don't know that my wife would ever go fully off grid. I don't think I could talk her into it.
But she probably won't do it willfully.
Yeah,
but everybody may do it
Yeah, especially depending on the results of this election, we may be all living off grid very quickly. So
that's right.
And it doesn't matter who you're voting for, everyone.
That's true.
That could go either way, no matter who wins this office. So, what made you decide to do that, though?
Well, we had a small farm, an on-grid farm outside of Lubbock for a while, and we just kind of started experimenting with different ways to do things. Yeah. I think the actual trigger was one time the power was out for about 8 hours. And I woke up in the morning and I realized that we couldn't make coffee.
Yeah.
And so I knew people made coffee before there was power. So I started improvising. And then that just triggered a thought in me. And everything we did after that, feeding the chickens, I thought, how would we do this if there was no power? And then we would experiment with it. And a lot of times we found out we liked it better that way.
Yeah.
And so when we decided to move from West Texas to Central Texas, we just decided, hey, why even bring it with us? Why, just if we're going to move, let's just do without it and never get hooked up.
Yeah,
that's what we did.
That's just very. I mean, who hasn't had that? Well, I don't know. Probably lots of normal people have not had the conversation. Like, what if there was no power? What if we had an apocalypse? My wife and I talk about it all the time. Of course, we watch. For some reason, she and I in particular. This is one of the few fiction things that we share a love for. But we love post-apocalyptic fiction, and
right.
So we're constantly looking at the world through that lens. If there was an apocalypse, we could set up house in that baseball diamond, or whatever. It's all kinds of little scenarios that I'll one day get around to writing, I'm sure.
Right.
So
right.
that is very cool. How do you feel that has impacted your fiction?
Well, I think it's informed it.
Yeah.
And so, I think before I was even writing fiction, when I was writing nonfiction, I would read fiction, post-apocalyptic books, and living this life, I would go, that's ridiculous. There was a very popular and well-written post-apocalyptic book, maybe 10 years ago that I was reading. And I just was shouting out loud that, they had a whole community that had like a 100 by 100 foot garden, and they were living off this thing for a year.
Yeah.
Well, anybody that's ever tried to grow enough food to live, even for a family of 5, know that that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the community in this book was not doing any type of food preservation. They were just eating it as it came out of the ground.
Yeah.
And so, of course, in my experience, I know that this is and most post-apocalyptic novels have this problem that they don't work in reality.
Right.
The survival things don't work in reality. So I think that not only drove me to write about it, but it also informed a lot of the things that I write that are not even related to survival or post-apocalypticism.
Yeah.
So now when I consider, writing something like Hell in the Sea, I actually look at it through an outsider view, almost like a view of I'm writing about somebody that's living in a cultural milieu that I don't live in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think it gives me maybe a little bit of texture that the reader may pick up that's not maybe evident in the words.
Right. So, okay, how much of you is in Dim in your book?
Not much. Not really. In fact, that's probably one of the characters that one of the things about the book that people would probably mostly wrong about.
Yeah.
Because I'm not very much like Dim at all, other than he's kind of separate from what seems to be going on around him most of the time.
Right.
That's probably a little bit of me, but other than that, not much at all. The character that most people seem to like for some reason is Coop.
Yeah.
And Coop is really a composite character between me and Forbes West and another guy.
Okay.
And so what I've done is I've kind of the things that I think come out of Coop's mouth with Forbes's words.
Yeah. Which I've seen this sort of banter you and Forbes have on Facebook, and I didn't know enough about either of you when I first kind of started following you to know if this was legitimate, like you're antagonizing each other or not. So I stayed out of all of that. But you guys are pretty funny. So, and and I don't pipe up much on your wall for some reason. I'm all over the place, but I never say much. I'm a lurker on your Facebook.
I think there's
post.
a lot of that.
I wonder why though.
I think that there's kind of almost a fear or something. I think people think maybe I'm going to snap on them or something.
Maybe so. It's funny.
I try to be pretty easygoing, but
I
hear that a lot.
Yeah, I
hear that a lot.
I think you are, but I think I started following you because John recommended like practically everything you do. I don't know how close you are with John, but the dude loves you. I don't know if you know this or not.
I love him too.
And and John's he's been on the show, and I don't remember the episode. Everyone, I'm sorry. I'll try to put that in the show notes maybe, but we're in a mastermind together. He pushed your Hell in the Sea immediately, and I didn't go out and get it because I just drag my feet on practically everything in life at this point. But I did start following you, and you're very entertaining. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it.
No problem at all. So what else are you working on right now?
I'm working on, you may know, Pennsylvania, which was a novel I released in 2014. Has been the option has been bought for a film project. So I'm working a little bit with the producer, moving that project forward. About to announce in the next month or so an option sale on another book I'm writing right now, which is Futurity, and it's a novelization of a novelette that I wrote in 2013. And I've got several other cooperational projects that are going on.
Yeah.
In addition to the short stories, so mainly Futurity is the big thing that I'm writing now.
So what would you? I mean, you have like the progress meters on your site and everything. That's very cool. I used to do that. I don't know why I don't do that anymore. I should start doing that again. But I
need to keep up with mine.
I know. Well, that may be why I stopped doing it, because I don't forget to track in my little spreadsheet, like, here's the word count, but I always forgot to update it on the webpage, so what's the point, But
right.
So you're, and I don't know where I was leading with that, unfortunately. Now it completely dropped out of my brain. But
about what project I'm working on now?
Yeah. Well, and I was gonna, I guess, because I had seen that you had this your Pennsylvania that is picked up for a series or a movie, television series.
Right now, they're talking about two. Originally, it was for a TV series, but the producer went to Cannes Film Festival, and we've been talking with the financiers who are looking at at least a 2-movie deal on the first book, and maybe
that's very cool.
A film deal on the second book, which has yet to be written.
So I don't know if you're aware of this. You may not be aware of this, but I'm actually the director of marketing for Draft to Digital. Okay.
I saw that when you announced it. I was very happy. Yeah.
And it's very cool. It's very awesome. Dan Wood and I have talked about you and Pennsylvania and this sort of weird, because it's Amish science fiction, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
exactly.
not a huge market for that. You wouldn't think there'd be a huge market for that, and yet it's been very successful for you.
Right.
Which I find that inspiring, and if I have any message, if I draw any message that I want to share with the audience, and you can correct the record here if you feel this is wrong, right. But to me, it feels like that was fiction from the heart, not necessarily written to market. But you were able to discover the market for it because it was something personal to you, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. And what happened with Pennsylvania was, and why I think it found some success is that I had kind of accidentally found myself as a sci-fi writer, because that's not what I intended to be, but I didn't realize post-apocalypticism was considered sci-fi.
Yeah.
And so I wrote this little short story, and that's all it was ever intended to be, which was Pennsylvania Part 1. I didn't call it Part 1. It was just called Pennsylvania. And it was this little short story, and over about 7 months, it really started resonating with people, and people that would have never bought anything called Amish sci-fi,
right,
were picking it up and sharing it. And so then I thought, it had gotten popular enough, and people like you, Howie, and other people were telling me, you just gotta get this thing out there, finish it up, the whole novel. And so that's what I did. And I think it was more than the fact that this was a new genre, other than this was a new and maybe more honest twist on just sci-fi, on what science fiction is and what it used to be.
Right.
And I think that's why it kind of resonated with people.
Right. And again, you were able to inform what you were writing from your own life, because
exactly.
I mean, I think it's brilliant. I think it's intriguing. And if someone walked up to me at any point prior to discovering who you were and said, "Hey, would you like to read some Amish science fiction?" First, I would have probably laughed, because I would have assumed they were kidding. And then second, I don't think I would have gone for it, because I'm trying to imagine, like, how, if you say steampunk science fiction, you've got at least sort of the H.G. Wells, Victorian stuff to draw on. But this idea of, I envisioned at first, like, hand-carved wooden robots and stuff. Like, maybe
now you're giving me ideas.
There you go. That one's free. But no, actually, as post-apocalyptic fiction, I'm like, I love the idea, because literally my wife and I, before I had ever heard your name, Michael, my wife and I had a conversation after watching an episode of Walking Dead, where we turned to each other and we were talking about sort of possibilities, and she's like, well, what would happen, if this was happening with like the Amish? Because she has family in Pennsylvania, right?
Exactly.
I'm like, I never thought of that. Now I'm thinking like Amish zombie slayers and stuff, like how would you feel about that?
It's I don't know if you're familiar with John Joseph Adams.
Yes.
He's a kind of super anthologist.
Yeah.
He sent me a short story one time that he had published years ago. It may have been in Lightspeed or something.
Right.
And it was a story. It was almost like World War Z. There was they were interviewing people after a zombie outbreak was over.
Okay.
And they were interviewing this Amish man, and they were saying, "Okay, so how did you guys make it?" And he tells them the whole story. It's very, very believable about how they basically lured in these zombies, and then they got them to pull their plows.
That's okay.
And it made perfect sense, and it was such a wonderful story. And I thought, I think it's really just a kind of a limitation on what we already think is
Right.
possible, right? Rather than, and when you read something like that, you're like, wow, it just blows your mind.
Yeah, I have to.
This is what they would do.
I have to tell you, that's it's a conversation that eventually gets me into a fervor when watching Walking Dead, because I'm like, there's whatever is happening to these things, it's perpetual energy. Like, why has no one thought of putting them on like a giant treadmill?
Yeah, what's going to happen if they die? They become zombies.
Right.
I mean, it's perpetual. You're exactly right.
Right. So there you go. There you go, writers of The Walking Dead. Now I know how to save society.
That's right.
Well, okay, so we're past the 30-minute mark, and I got to tell you, I'm sad because I have a feeling you and I could sit and talk like all day long. I think we'd have no trouble. A couple of Texas boys are talking about our books. We could do this all day.
Right.
Oh, I know what I was going to say earlier. I was going to say, because I was trying to draw whatever parallels there were between you and Dim, and I'm like, Dim's the kind of guy I'd sit in a bar and have scotch with. I don't know if you're into that sort of thing, but judging by cigars and all that, I figure there's a hint there. So
I'm very much into that sort of thing.
We'll have to hang out. We will have to hang out. I'm not all bearded and everything, though. I'm probably more hipster than I guess Amish, but whatever.
It's all the same to me.
We'll do all right. We'll do all right. All right,
Yeah,
Michael. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I enjoy all kinds of people, and I enjoy conversation. And
yeah.
If you're a Texan and you like scotch, we're already on the same page.
We're in. We are in. All right. We're gonna do all right. And since you're not that far from me. I mean, I'm in the Houston area. It's a few hours from me to your neck of the woods. Maybe we can hang together in Austin sometime or something. But
sounds good to me, man.
We'll do that. All right. So for everyone listening, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Thanks so much, Michael, for being on the show, man. I'm impressed. Definitely, everyone listening, definitely go out, contribute to the Patreon so you can catch up on Hell in the Sea. It's so far, it's fascinating. If you are an author in particular, but even just an entrepreneur, and you've ever had to deal with, well, let's just put it this way: just read the book. It's fascinating.
Right. That's right.
And you can find out more about Michael on his website at michaelbunker.com. I'll put links to that and everything else in the show notes. So you can follow him on Facebook, Twitter, get the same sort of experience I'm getting. And Michael, thanks so much for being on, man.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Yeah, it's been fun. All right, everybody, stick around for the wrap up, and we'll see you next time. And this is that wrap up. Thanks for hanging back. Thanks for sticking around. That was Michael Bunker. Now I got to tell you, so every now and then I come across people that I think of as being sort of kindred spirits. Michael has a lifestyle. He's forged his own path, we're going to say, and that's something I basically, when it comes down to it, I deeply respect that, because it's the kind of life I feel I have. I think I've sometimes conformed a little, and usually when I've done that, I've been fairly miserable. But when my wife, God bless her, man, she's had to deal with coming to live. Okay, here's the latest. I believe she picked this up from reading Purpose Driven Life, which is Rick Warren, his book, and it's EGR. Some people are EGR, extra grace required, and I think I'm definitely one of those people. And I think that my wife, of course, is amazing for being able to tolerate me and my quirks. But this, sort of like this whole RV lifestyle started as a conversation that she wasn't all that keen over. But the remarkable thing about my wife is she thinks about things far after the conversation. and will often sort of give it a go anyway. Change your mind, as it were, or at least open her mind enough to try something new, and that makes her remarkable. So, and something I love her for. And that said, Michael Bunker is a more extreme version of the kind of lifestyle that Kara and I want to live. We're simplifying our life, but he's got this kind of incredible environment he's building up. And I love watching videos of him, like, rolling cigars, and he's very friendly. Talks to the audience, and he's hand rolling a cigar, and I'm looking on with great interest because I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff. He's a fellow fan of Hemingway, that sort of thing. We got a lot in common. Every now and then I just meet these people that I connect with on a soul level, I think. Nick Thacker was like this. He also kind of struck out on his own, did sort of his own thing. He's got a more traditional lifestyle, but he broke the mold in that he left Texas and went to Colorado, and forged a new life for himself and his wife there. And I respect that. That's the kind of thing that it just drives me. I just love it. On to housekeeping stuff, okay, real quick. One of the things you can do, and I would really appreciate this, is if you are enjoying the show, if you're enjoying the guests, if you enjoy me, if there's anything at all about this show that you find intriguing or inspiring or worthy, I would appreciate, number one, that you go on iTunes, find the Wordslinger podcast, and leave a review. Rate it. I like 4 and 5 star reviews. I really appreciate those. And just write a little something. Tell me the value you found in the show. Tell me what it is you like, or you can tell me things that bug you too. I don't mind. But these things, the more of these reviews I get, especially the positive ones, but I mean, the more I get, the more discoverable the show is, and that makes it much easier for me to reach the audience that's going to benefit most from this. I see this show, it's part of my work. It's part of my career. And I use career in the more traditional sense of, enfolding not only my job, but, the work that I do for an income, but also the work that I do as part of my community and the life that I'm building. That's my career. The work that I leave behind for future generations, that's my career. So the more people who notice this show in particular, the easier it is to reach those folks and give them inspiration, give them hope, give them something, give them a story that might compel them to do something worthwhile with their lives, or do something for their community, or otherwise just be better at their lives. That's what I'm aiming for. I want to build tools to help people to get better at their lives, to meet their goals, to chase their dreams and catch them. It can be done. It really can. So, and if you don't believe that, I got an RV to show you. So, and I've got a writing career to show you, and I've got folks like Michael Bunker and John Monk and a whole bunch of other really amazing people, Andy Weir, and everyone else who's been on the show. These are people who went out and built their lives, crafted their lives exactly the way they wanted them to be, and you can do that too. That's the point of all of it. So that helps me a great deal. Now, if you want to support the show financially, I also offer a Patreon campaign, and unlike Michael Bunker, I'm not very good at this yet. Haven't built in incentives. I really need to. I mean, I keep saying I'm going to, but I keep getting sidetracked by life. So hopefully once we're in the RV, we can actually, I might be able to slow some things down a little and get to some of these projects that have been sitting on the side burner. I say that, but then 5 years from now, I'm still going to be saying I haven't built those incentives yet. Sorry, guys. But you can go and find that campaign. If you go to wordslingerpodcast.com, there is a button right there on the homepage for the podcast where you can get in on the Patreon campaign. And $1, couple of bucks, as much or as little as you want. Every little dime helps, and I'm very appreciative of all of it. So thanks a lot. I mean, it's one more way for me to continue to support the show. So I do appreciate your help with it. So check that out. You can also find links to the Patreon campaigns on all of the show notes pages, where you'll also find information about the guests. You'll find books that they've written for sale there, which I do encourage you to buy those books, because here's the deal. I do use affiliate links on those. So I do make affiliate dollars when you buy a book, but more importantly, the guest also makes a royalty off of that. So this is why they do the shows. This is why they go out there to entice people to check out their work. So I would greatly appreciate it if you would support the guests of the show by buying their products and services, trying them out. And if something doesn't work for you, if it's not your cup of tea, don't feel guilty in the least. This is not about guilting anybody into doing something they don't want to do. This is about you discovering someone new, and discovering something new that could be beneficial to you in some way. And reading works such as Helen in the Sea, that these are works by these authors are out there, to tell the story that they want to tell, but also there's an income component here, and you're helping to support the growth of the arts and the growth of this individual's dreams. And you would, I guess the way to think of this is, I like the golden rule aspect of this, where you would basically do what you would want someone to do for you. So do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you're an author in particular, you can appreciate this. So go out and support these artists as much as you can. And if you can't support them financially, then share these episodes with people. Share links to the author's work. Go out and help push this around and promote these folks, because this is how I think we currently live in, let's just call it a maker culture. We're evolving from an old model of, corporations own everything. Everything's made by faceless entities we never get to meet. I think we're starting to move into an era where the guy in his garage is competitive with the major conglomerate. I think, with the advent of things like 3D printing, with the advent of publishing on demand and self-publishing tools like Draft2Digital, our unofficial sponsor of the Wordslinger podcast, Draft2Digital at draft2digital.com. That's draft2digital.com. That's my announcer voice. And if you look around, you're going to see a lot more of this stuff. And I think it's just going to grow, because we're getting into an era where the people are empowered to build and create anything that they can imagine. It's remarkable. And we talk about, jobs going away, robots replacing people. We talk about all these things, but I think that's the natural evolution of our culture. And at this point, I think it's wise of each of us to go out and find the thing that we're good at, find what we're able to create that adds value to the world, whatever that may be, and start focusing our energy as much as we can on creating that thing and putting it out there to the benefit of others. I actually believe fully that is the path for each of us. That is where our culture is evolving to, this maker culture. So I applaud guys like Michael Bunker, who are brave enough to go out and forge a life for themselves that is very different from the traditional life of everyone else that you may know. And I am very grateful to him and to others for all their contributing and all they're doing and all the ways in which they're inspiring me. So thank you very much, Michael. Thank you, everyone else. Thank you for tuning in for this episode of the Wordslinger podcast. We're going to wrap this up. I got driving to do, man. Actually, today I've got work to do in preparation for being on the road, but I'm very excited. I hope you're excited too. If you would like to get in touch, to ask me a question, to find out more about a guest, to find out more about writing, whatever, why don't you give me a call? Call me at 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. You can also leave me a voicemail from wordslingerpodcast.com. Just look for the send voicemail button. It's got a little microphone next to it, a little orange tab on the right-hand side of the screen where you can leave me a voicemail from your browser if you prefer. You can also email me from that site. If you hit contact, you can leave me an email. Tell me all about yourself and what you're loving and what you're not loving. I got so many ways to reach out to me. It's it's kind of hard to miss me. Hit me up on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Kevin Tomlinson on Twitter. I never talk about this, but I'm at Kevin Tomlinson on Twitter. Feel free to follow me and chat me up. I respond to everything. I'm also available on Facebook. Just look up Kevin Tomlinson. There are only a couple on Facebook, and unfortunately for every other Kevin Tomlinson in the world, it's going to be very difficult to have a presence online. So go check out Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Just look me up. So hope you're having a fantastic day. Hope you have a fantastic weekend ahead. Thank you so much for being a part of my life and a part of my work, my career. God bless you. And be safe out there, and I will see you next time.
Word Slinger.